shit.
And
oh my God. That's an incredible finish.
Isn't that wild?
Wow. Alec, try that.
Yeah.
I grew up in a small town in Indiana. My dad had gotten his first engineering job at a local manufacturing plant, and my mom ran a daycare from our house. We had an old picket fence and a great climbing tree. My best friend was a local preacher's daughter. And on special weekends, my dad's lifelong best friend, Uncle Timmy, my godfather, would come to visit. And they would drink Jack and Cokes and make pizza. My parents would let me sip the Jack and Coke to see how I would react. I can still taste it. And to be honest, it was gross. But those are some of the happiest memories of my life. Living in a small town in America, drinking whiskey. This is a letter at the place we're staying in. It says, this building was built in 1885, but was renovated in 2022. We hope you enjoy all the character that it has to offer, including a Prohibition-era compartment that remains in the floor somewhere. If you can find it, you may enjoy the contents. Uh-oh. Oh, it smells like old cupboards, like a grandma or an antique shop. Oh!
The dead body falls out?
Yeah, no shit.
Ew, that is disgusting.
That's like black mold. Well, I'm trying to think, so if it was like, if they're like running an operation, that's one thing.
It's gotta be like a secret.
That's what it is. No, it's just like, I mean, there's carpet laid down, but it's like down permanently.
That's gotta be it.
That's gotta be it, man. That's the money. Ready?
Yep.
Aha! Oh. Damn.
That's cool.
That's awesome.
What's in there?
My brother and I are searching for something. I'm not entirely sure what it is yet, but I know that it's here, in Whiskeyland. If you're searching for a truth, it's best to start where everything first began. For me, that's my birth state, Indiana. A state made up of small towns with big ideas. I knew that we couldn't come to Indiana without kissing the proverbial ring. We had to have a whiskey with the Godfather, our dad's best friend, Uncle Timmy.
Sure. Timmy! Welcome, gentlemen. How are you?
There he is.
See ya. The collection started with just this rack here and not as many bottles. As you can see up top here, it's mainly my Buffalo Trace stuff with a few stragglers of like Three Boys, a couple of Infinity bottles that I created. One thing for all you geeks, this is my Weller 12-year. Bottle is circa 2016. This was the last year that they made this bottle. They went to this shape bottle. The other thing I wanted to show you collectors is that, you notice these bottles? I drink them. I started off with 2 bottles on each row with a little more space between them. Now it's gotten more compact and 3 deep, and we've got this. I've also retired probably, I have a list, but probably 40, 50 bottles. If there's things that I enjoy, sometimes I go a little overboard on in that. But it's social too. It's having the opportunity to share with people, to maybe educate them or enjoy them enjoying an experience or trying something new. And then for the more seasoned person, it's just kind of nice that, hey, I have something here that maybe they haven't tried and they've wanted to try, so they can try it here. Or they have a bourbon that it's hard for them to find, allocated bourbon, and I have it, so I get to share it with them. I'm happy to share it with them. You're not taping my code, are you? I have a bourbon file, and in my bourbon file, I have my inventory list. So, what I've done is I've kept my inventory list, and my inventory list is compiled of all my bourbons that you see here. I separated the ryes, and so the few bottles of rye that I have are on here, and then the retired bottles. So, and what I do when I log my bottles in, I log the name, the proof, and then the mash bill and barrel char if I know it. It looks like right now here on the rack I have 131 bottles on the rack, and I have 4 bottles of rye. So as you can see, I'm not really I don't drink a lot of rye, but my retired bottles, I have retired 53 bottles of bourbon. I was trying to identify that magic mash bill, that magic char, that magic age that's like the perfect bourbon that I'd want to drink all the time. What I've come to find out is I really like bourbon, and it's really hard to find that one perfect because there can be different occasions and bottles that you've shared with different people, and that also imparts part of the being your favorite or something that you really enjoy. That's my anal retentive, everything has a place, and keep track of everything self.
And if someone deleted that list tomorrow, how would that make you feel? The Godfather is the classic bourbon hunter. He keeps great notes, has a refined palate, and is always on the hunt. Tim believes in maintaining a healthy relationship with a solid network of booze peddlers. And he always keeps his ears to the ground.
I'd say I have a bourbon buying problem, not a bourbon drinking problem. Is it too much? It's not too much if you're developing the relationship and looking for special bottles that sometimes it's like, oh, I have this, are you interested in this? So I live here because my mom and dad are older. My brother and sister live here in Hobart, so thought it'd be a good idea to kind of get close to them. My kids are not too far away, and my grandkids. So Hobart's a nice little town, pretty quaint, pretty quiet for the most part. Yeah, just an average town, I guess.
Our bourbon hunter keeps an open line of communication with a man named Harry at his local honey hole.
It's too sweet.
It's too sweet for you?
Yes.
See, that might be... Yeah, it's... Ooh.
It's a great complex,
Amberana
really
and
good
honey,
flavor.
yeah. And it's a beautiful bottle, too.
Yeah.
And it's MGP.
Yes,
MGP, bum bum ba. Midwest Grain Products is an Indiana-based mass producer of whiskey. In fact, if you go to your local honey hole and read the back of some of the most sought-after whiskey brands taking up a lot of space on the shelves, you will see that the label says distilled in Indiana, which means it was likely made at MGP. It used to be whiskey's dirty little secret, but they've made a real name for themselves over the years, even with a limited set of mash bills. But I think there's another more profound story happening in Indiana. But getting to the truth, especially in whiskey, isn't always easy.
Hey, tell me about Hard Truth. You told me a little bit about it before, and you got a wide variety and selection of like the Hard Truth stuff.
So Hard Truth did the 3 release, different cognac casks, some wine casks, sherry casks, and a couple other they did it. And they just recently released the Bottle in Bond series.
And what do you, have you had the opportunity to try any of those? I mean, are they any good?
So the Bottle in Bond series, I sold like in 3 weeks almost 20 cases.
Really?
They're not hiding anything. They literally says 2 year or 4 year.
Right.
But they did a great job.
Oh shit! What is that? Is that
It's a cooler.
it's a wheelable cooler?
Uh-huh. Smoky drink cooler.
Oh my god.
And like a planet to its orbit, we were suddenly being summoned to Hard Truth Distillery. I had a lot of questions, and I wanted to get to the bottom of it. I needed to know the truth.
You know, if I watch someone play an incredible jazz piece on the piano, you know, they're not laboring over every single note. They're hearing the whole piece, and that's flowing through them to get out to their fingers, you know. So I'm not calculating every decision or movement. It just kind of it just is happening, and then it just flows out, you know. And then obviously it takes a lot of hard work by a lot of people to see that to the end. So I've been obsessing about this for the last 10 years, and this is just kind of how it's come out. Really, it's a convergence of a love of making incredible flavors out of good ingredients, and then my intense love of science. So the wonderful thing about distilling is you're able to shape flavors.
In the case of Hard Truth, shaping flavors has to do with embracing the land they've firmly planted their flag in. Hard Truth's sprawling property is in a small rural area of southern Indiana, in a town called Nashville. Yep, they are proudly the other Nashville. They may not be the biggest music city in the country, but Bryan, Hard Truth's master distiller, is a sort of whiskey rock star. His background is in beer and food, but his pursuit of great ingredients combined with the belief in the higher calling of alchemic mysticism. He found his way here, on this gorgeous 325-acre property, most of which has remained wild and untouched, allowing for a true taste of the land, a terroir like no other.
You know, you can have all the laid plans of how you're going to shape the flavor and which directions you want to push and pull it, but you know, wherever you land geographically in the water that you're pulling from, the grains you're pulling from, and all those hundreds of decisions that you make along the way, you know, where you're going to put your distillery, you know, all those things, you know, there's so many decisions that are going to ultimately shape the flavor of that whiskey. So I think as a distiller, the thing that makes me the most proud is that we really have our own unique flavor profile that can't really be replicated. Heritage, you know, lives on through passed down tradition. Growing up in southern Indiana, my dad and his friends made sausage and wine every year, and you know, as I got old enough, I could join them. So everybody from the community would come in, and you wouldn't charge any, you know, it would just be splitting the cost of the goods, and then taking grapes grown right there. We would go across the river and get freshly dumped bourbon barrels and actually rest the wine in those to get some extra flavor. So, but it was, you know, those rich traditions. I think when you're a kid, you know, you don't see them the same way as you do once you get older, and kind of look back through the lens of time. I'm if I think about through my childhood and maybe what brought me here and the connection, I honestly think, so I'm an only child, and on my dad's side of the family, I'm the only grandchild. So really my most influential relationship to what brought me here is with my grandmother. From a very small age, she set me up on the counter, and she'd always be putting, you know, different things in, you know, interesting cheeses and pickled herring and things outside the norm for, you know, a kid like me in Indiana. And then she always say, like, you know, you don't have to like it, but I want you to tell me, what do you taste? Right? So then I would tell her. And then she advanced from there for, you know, like taking some of her best dishes that I loved and kind of deconstructing them, leaving seasoning out, and then having me taste it and say, what does this need? You know, so I you know, for her, it was just, I was her little buddy in the kitchen. But for me, it really helped me to kind of attach, you know, how you can manipulate flavors. And then when I saw the intense pleasure that people got from my grandmother's cooking, it evoked a real significant emotional response.
Holy shit.
And
Oh my God.
What do you
That's
think?
an incredible finish.
Isn't that wild?
Wow. Alec, try that.
Yeah. I've got another one that's the same mash bill, but we subbed caramel malt instead of chocolate malt.
Yeah.
So it's just a little bit lighter. But the tremendous difference in flavor profile between the two just from how long you roast one of the grains is pretty fascinating.
Wow.
The distillate that comes off the still is very clean, doesn't have many off flavors that require the subtraction of a heavy char. So we have custom char toast combinations that really give the Hard Truth sweet mash whiskey its own very specific flavor profile.
What about the tree? Like,
Yeah.
do you think it matters where the tree grows?
100%. So there have been some studies done where they've taken trees that grew on a north-facing slope versus a south-facing slope and put the same whiskey in those barrels and identified the difference. So I think the main difference with that is how slow or fast does the tree grow.
Yeah.
So depending on how slow or fast it grows, how close those rings are together or how far apart they are, those rings represent kind of a porous ability for oxygenation to occur in the barrel.
Gotcha.
So like a French oak is a very tight grain. It's a very slow growing oak.
Yeah.
And so the grains are very tight. And so it ages the whiskey far differently.
Yeah.
It's harnessing that alchemy of why whiskey tastes the way it does, and figuring out which of those levers you're able to push and pull on with intentionality. You want to try this other one?
Yes, sir. I'll never say no to that, just so you know. Our spiritual journey to visit a big idea in a small town brought us to this mecca for booze hounds. It would have been easy to chase the hard truth, sipping on sweet mash bourbon for a whole other day, a weekend, or even a lifetime. But the Godfather had a surprise for us. Pizza and whiskey with our dad. Just like the good old days, with a few more sips.
Are the onions for the pizza?
Well, on one of the pizzas.
Okay, not the first one, right?
No, mushrooms and sausage and pepperonis, and then I got mozzarella.
Do we want
You
to?
want sliced
You have
mozzarella?
any like seasoning? A little salt, maybe?
Oh, yeah.
You guys can talk during this process if that's something you're into.
Do you talk during sex?
Do you talk during sex, or does it cost more?
Yeah. We grew up in Miller, which is part of Gary, Miller Beach, a beach community right on the southern tip of Lake Michigan. We were very fortunate. We grew up, with the lake, with the beach there. At that time, Gary didn't have the stigma that it has now. It was actually kind of a progressive city, progressive town. We met in kindergarten, and we were in the same classes, had a lot of the same teachers, so we're just always, in the same classes, and that's how it started. And then
You were within bike riding distance of each other.
yeah,
I was born 63, you were 64.
64.
So by the time we were in kindergarten or first grade or older hanging out, it was the 70s.
Yes.
So it was a time of, well, we were too young to partake, but 70s was known for free sex and free drugs, right?
Yep. And social unrest, protesting.
Yeah, actually,
Save the dunes, right?
delivering the newspaper through the years that I did covered a few years of the Vietnam War. And so there used to be like daily updates, right? Like how many people got killed and where the activity was, stuff like that. Yeah, so that would be a whole different world now, right? With social media and even just cameras on cell phones. Would have been a whole different thing.
Well, you're kind of seeing it now in Ukraine, right?
Ukraine and
And in Gaza,
in Gaza, yeah.
right?
There's no hiding, that's for sure.
I think that on the world stage, though, I think that you know, we've kind of become the world's police. I'm not sure.
Well, we've become so entangled economically, right?
Right, because we have to.
It's impossible not to be.
Yeah.
It's more about entangled allies and economic.
Going to your tangled entanglements. I mean,
Yeah.
we live in a world economy, and we're the leader of that world economy. Or one of the leaders. China's maybe number 2. You know, but the world, right? More and more, people need to understand we are one world. There's a world economy. What happens in the United States affects other economies, and likewise, we can be affected by the wars that are going on in Gaza, the Middle East, and it's closing down shipping lanes, right? It's hard to ship. So we are also interconnected. If everybody could leave this world, look down and see that we are on this little planet, and we're all part of the same tribe, and truly understand that, our world would be a better place. My ideal day in Whiskeyland is sitting with the people that I love and sharing what I have here, or a unique bottle, or them saying, this is my favorite. And I said, well, let's sit here and let's drink that then, you know? Yeah, having my dad there. If you know, my dad, your dad, Craig, being there, my brothers, and you guys would probably be my Whiskeyland ideal, sitting and just sharing what I have.